What do you guys think about the why behind habits? Do you ever dig into this?
The why behind habits?
Yeah, so I follow a guy called Ian Stanley, and he's a great mentor, a copywriter. And I recently went through one of the trainings that he was going, and we talked a lot about habits. But what was interesting is he said that without a strong why behind any habit, you won't do it. Right. Yeah. And what I find interesting, and this is where I see a lot of people getting stuck. And I'm so glad Charlie mentioned this, because so many people are afraid to start because they don't want to be just another statistic, is that with those habits, and I love what you were saying there, Luis, and the idea behind, hey, if you just start and be consistent and just build it up, knowing that there's a reward at the end, like you'll get there. But like, I still find that hard because, I mean, just like Charlene, like when I started my podcast, I couldn't do that because I was like, hey, I'm going to start my podcast, but if I'm not making money within 3 months, like I can't keep doing it. Like a lot of people are stuck in this trap. And one thing that I would really encourage anybody listening to really think about is if you can make it real, and one of the easiest ways to make something real is to make money from it, then you get such a level of why and drive and energy behind it that it will keep you going. For example, when I started my blog for the very first time, you remember that one all the way back in 2016, Let's Get Jobless, great blog. Definitely don't go read it. When I started that blog, I wouldn't have stuck with it. But within 2 months, I'd made $400. I was like, oh man, like this is real. Like I can make money from it. And that fueled me to continue the pursuit of doing it every single day. So I would go one level deeper than your guys' answers and say like, yeah, it's great to do it as a habit because you've been told you need to do it. But this is one of my big issues. Like I love Russell. I love Steve. I love the message they share. I love the fact they say you've got to publish. The one thing I don't 100% agree with is that Russell will tell you, hey, you got to publish every day for a year and then expect nothing back. And the reason I don't agree with that is that 99% of people can't do that. Yeah. And the 1% who do will have wild success. But like, I don't want to have 1% of my students having wild success. Like I want most of them to be able to have success. And my number one piece of advice is like, figure out how you can actually get success fast. Like if you can go into your podcast and say within a week, within a month, within 2 months, here's what I need to do to be successful so that I can prove to myself this is worth doing, then you'll stay way longer. Like one statistic I love, guys, and this is one of my most proud things that our whole entire business has been able to do, is that most people in podcasting quit within 3 months. Like 90% of people drop off within 3 months. The people that have come through our process, 91% of them are still podcasting today.
Amazing.
That's awesome.
And like, I'm so proud of that because if you can give people a way to figure out, okay, here's how you can keep doing it and win. Like, how do you guys do that? So I'm curious for your podcast, like what's your success? As in, how do you quantify the success of your show? Like you've not been doing it that long. Like what was it for you that was like, man, this is doing it now. This is real.
Before we get into that one, I mean, I'm like, my fingers are itching here because I love the conversation that was happening right now, right? Like the strong why behind the habit. I love that. And, you know, I agree and disagree a little bit because
I love this. I love the debate.
I'm not a big fan of like motivation, right? To say it in that way. Because motivation is very unstable. You know how many people you get at the beginning of the year saying they're going to lose I don't know how many weights, and they start, and 2 weeks later they're not doing exercise, and they're just like banging chips in the sofa, you know, like. So the motivation was in that beginning of, but then you talk about those quick wins, and I think that's different, right? Like motivation and momentum are two different.
Well, the way I like to think about it is, and again, this comes from me and Stanley, but it's this idea of discipline versus surrender, right? Like discipline is a million times better than motivation. Like you've got to be disciplined, right? Like I'm only motivated 20% of the time. Let's be honest. Like most of the time I'm like, no.
Because when I wake up.
Right. But if you become disciplined to do things that you have a strong why behind, it's really powerful. Like one story that I share with a lot of people about this, and I don't share this that publicly because I don't want people to like hate on me because of the food I eat, but 99% of my diet is mostly plant-based, right? Like I don't eat meat or a lot of dairy or anything like that. I will occasionally, like I'm down to have like a good steak if it's going on the barbecue, like once a year, but mostly I'm not. And the reason why I'm not is that my dad and my family and a lot of people in my family have a heart condition. Like my granddad died at 50 from heart disease. My dad had a heart attack at 55. And when that happened, it made me rethink, wow, like could that happen to me? And this is why I think the powerful why is so important, because what it does is, just like you're saying here, it instills the discipline because your why is really strong. Like motivation shit. But if you have a habit that you can actually be disciplined to follow, the thing that drives most habits is that why. Like it's easy for me to eat the right food I want to eat because I have that strong why of like, hey, I don't want to die when I'm 50, right? That's a really strong why, which helps me to build that habit, and it helps me to be disciplined. And that's mostly what I'm going, because I agree. I think motivation is no good.